Crystal Gayle's first steps into the world of country music were anything but ordinary. She did not arrive as an unknown hopeful with a guitar and a dream. Instead, she entered an industry already conquered by her own family. By the time she began to imagine a career for herself, her older sister, Loretta Lynn, was not just a star, but a supernova. Loretta's voice was a fixture on every radio station. Her presence graced the legendary stage of the Grand Ole Opry, and her story was firmly woven into the fabric of working-class America. For Crystal, this towering legacy was both a rare, open door into the heart of Nashville and a burden of expectation that few could ever comprehend. From the very beginning, she was not just a new voice with a unique talent. She was, and would always be, Loretta Lynn's baby sister. Loretta, for her part, genuinely wanted Crystal to succeed. She saw the spark in her younger sibling and used her influence to nurture it. During summer breaks from school, Loretta would take Crystal on tour, giving her invaluable experience and the chance to perform in front of live audiences who had come to see a legend. In a moment that would become part of their shared history, Loretta fell ill one evening before a show. Instead of canceling, she made a bold decision. She let Crystal, still a teenager, step onto the hallowed Grand Ole Opry stage in her place. It was a trial by fire, a test of nerve and talent under the brightest lights in country music. Crystal delivered. The young girl, with her striking looks and a voice as smooth as silk, proved she could hold her own, captivating the audience and demonstrating a poise that belied her years. But even in this moment of triumph, the comparisons were inescapable. As soon as Crystal signed her first recording contract, the whispers began, suggesting she was merely riding the coattails of her family's fame. She instinctively rejected this narrative. Her ambition was not to be an extension of Loretta's legacy, but to become an artist with her own sound, her own story, and her own identity. This meant making choices that would deliberately separate her from the very name that had given her a start, a path that would come at a cost and challenge the expectations of everyone around her. From the outset, Crystal Gayle's voice was a departure from the Nashville norm, where Loretta was celebrated for her raw, unfiltered, and powerfully straightforward delivery, a sound born from the hardship of the Kentucky hills. Crystal leaned into a polished, sophisticated, and fluid tone. Music critics would later label it countrypolitan, a seamless fusion of Nashville's storytelling tradition with the elegant production of pop music. Her sound was lighter, silkier, and intentionally crafted to appeal to radio audiences that stretched far beyond the traditional country heartland of the South. Her image was a perfect reflection of her music. Her floor-length hair became an iconic and unforgettable signature, a symbol of her unique brand. She appeared in flowing gowns and with jeweled makeup, looking more like a glamorous pop star than the coal miner's daughter her sister so famously sang about. She was meticulously crafting an identity that was entirely her own, a statement of artistic independence. This deliberate pivot did not go unnoticed, and the country music establishment pushed back. Traditionalists, who saw Loretta's unvarnished grit as the soul of the genre, accused Crystal of abandoning her roots. To them, her polish felt like a defection, a rejection of the authenticity that the Webb family name was built upon. Some speculated that even Loretta herself was not entirely convinced by the change, questioning why her sister would chase a Hollywood gloss when their legacy was forged in hard-edged truth. For Crystal, however, the answer was a matter of artistic survival. She deeply admired her sister, but she knew that she could not and should not copy her. Her purpose was not to duplicate a sound that had already been perfected, but to explore the vast, untapped potential of what country music could become. In time, this monumental gamble paid off spectacularly. By leaning into the very style that others had criticized, Crystal tapped into a new and expansive audience. She found fans in urban listeners who had never connected with traditional country, in international markets hungry for American music with a sophisticated flair, and among a generation that wanted their country songs infused with a touch of pop. Her warmth, elegance, and sophistication made her more than just a singer. She became a brand, instantly recognizable and beloved for delivering songs that carry both deep emotion and effortless grace. What had initially looked like a rejection of her roots was, in reality, a brilliant act of survival and innovation. The country music landscape of the 1970s was undergoing a seismic shift, with Nashville producers actively searching for artists who could achieve crossover success. Stars like Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, and Ronnie Milsap were already blurring the lines between country and pop. And Crystal Gayle was perfectly positioned to join them at the forefront of this movement. She was no longer living in Loretta's shadow. She was carving out a space in the industry that no one else could fill. While Crystal was fighting to establish her own identity, Loretta was cementing her status as the undisputed First Lady of country music. By the early 1970s, Loretta had an astonishing list of chart-topping singles, including timeless classics like Coal Miner's Daughter, Fist City, and Don't Come Home a-Drinkin' with Lovin' on Your Mind. In 1972, she achieved a historic milestone, becoming the first woman ever to win the Country Music Association's Entertainer of the Year award. For Crystal, her sister's monumental success was both a source of profound inspiration and a deeply intimidating presence. To enter the same industry at the same time with the same last name was like trying to find your footing in the middle of a hurricane. Every single she released was measured against Loretta's achievements. Every review, no matter how positive, carried an unspoken comparison. And yet, walking away was never an option. Music was in her blood, a part of her soul, and her sister's journey had shown her that a woman could succeed on her own terms, even if, for Crystal, those terms had to be radically different. Before the world was captivated by Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue, Crystal was methodically building her career and proving her staying power. In 1975, she released Wrong Road Again, a song penned by the gifted writer Alan Reynolds. It became a top 10 hit on the country charts, a significant achievement that introduced her to the world as a serious contender in her own right. Somebody Loves You soon followed, climbing even higher and solidifying her position. These early records did not yet make her a crossover superstar, but they were crucial in building her credibility. They proved she was no one-hit wonder, and that her success was not merely a product of her family name. She was laying the foundation for something much, much bigger. That foundation gave way to a global breakthrough in 1977, when she recorded Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue. With its hauntingly beautiful melody, sophisticated arrangement, and Crystal's tender, evocative vocal delivery, the song struck a universal chord that transcended genres. It soared to #1 on the country charts, climbed to an impressive number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, and became a massive international hit. The song earned her a Grammy Award for Best Female Country Vocal Performance and sold millions of copies worldwide. This success changed everything. Overnight, Crystal Gayle was no longer just Loretta Lynn's sister. She was a global star. Her international tours took her to audiences in Europe and Asia who barely knew of Loretta but adored Crystal. Her songs were played on both country and pop radio stations, reaching millions of listeners who had never before considered themselves fans of Nashville music. A string of other hits quickly followed, including Talking in Your Sleep, Half the Way, I'll Get Over You, and Ready for the Times to Get Better. Each one expanded her reputation as a masterful artist who could seamlessly balance raw emotion with refined sophistication. She became a regular and welcome guest on mainstream television, appearing on iconic shows like The Tonight Show, American Bandstand, Hee Haw, and even The Muppet Show. Crystal Gayle was no longer confined to the country music audience. She was a beloved presence in living rooms across America and around the world. This was more than just success. It was validation. The risks she had taken, the countrypolitan sound, the polished image, the steadfast refusal to copy her sister, had all been worth it. She had created something distinctive, something powerful, and something lasting. But even at the height of her fame, the comparisons to her sister never truly faded. In fact, in some circles, they grew louder. As Crystal's star ascended in the world of pop-infused country, Loretta Lynn remained firmly and proudly rooted in her own tradition. Loretta's songs carried the undeniable weight of coal country, the complexities of marriage and motherhood, and the everyday struggles of women in small towns. Crystal, by contrast, leaned into smoother, more universal themes of romance and heartbreak, with lyrics that drifted just as easily onto pop radio as they did onto country stations. To their legions of fans, it became a fascinating dual legacy. Two sisters from the same humble Kentucky holler, standing on stages across the world, with careers that seemed to reflect opposite sides of the same coin. Loretta was the bold, outspoken matriarch of country truth. Crystal was the refined, elegant face of country sophistication. Together, they demonstrated just how wide and wonderfully diverse the genre could stretch. Industry insiders and parts of the media, however, never stopped the relentless comparing. Who had more #1 hits? Who was the bigger star? Who represented the real voice of country music? These questions were constant, often unfair, and designed to create a narrative of rivalry. Yet, in public, the sisters never once took the bait. They smiled together in photographs, praised one another's work in interviews, and steadfastly refused to air any grievances in front of the cameras. To the outside world, they were a united front. Behind the scenes, the immense pressure of constant touring and the weight of the media's narratives inevitably created some distance. But whenever they appeared together, at award shows, on television specials, or at quiet family gatherings, there was no rivalry they allowed to overshadow their deep, sisterly bond. For all the public speculation, the truth was much simpler and far more profound. Loretta Lynn and Crystal Gayle had carved different paths, but they walked them with mutual respect and admiration. Crystal's remarkable ability to remain dignified and graceful in the face of constant comparisons was a key part of what made her career so enduring. She did not try to compete with Loretta, nor did she ever apologize for being different. She embraced the reality that two sisters could carry the same powerful legacy forward in entirely different, yet equally valid ways. That choice not only preserved her career, but more importantly, it preserved their sisterhood. If the late 1970s crowned Crystal Gayle as a superstar, the 1980s proved she had the talent and tenacity to sustain it. She continued to deliver a steady stream of chart-topping singles, from Too Many Lovers to Our Love Is on the Fault Line. In 1982, she scored a major duet with Eddie Rabbitt, You and I, which became a beloved wedding standard for years to come. On stage, she became one of the few female artists of her time who consistently headlined her own tours, playing to sold-out arenas and theaters across the country. Her international fame continued to grow as she was embraced by audiences in Europe and Asia, further proof that her unique style of country music had a universal appeal. The awards and accolades continued to pour in as well. The Academy of Country Music named her top female vocalist for 3 consecutive years. In total, she earned over 20 #1 hits on the country charts, a remarkable record that few women of her era could match. She was not just surviving in Loretta's shadow. She was rewriting the story of what a female artist could achieve in country music. By the 1990s, Crystal had slowed her recording schedule, but never left the stage. She transitioned gracefully into a new role as a symbol of elegance and longevity, admired for maintaining her pristine voice and timeless style across decades. She became a sought-after performer for tribute concerts, special television events, and retrospectives celebrating the pioneering women of country music. Then, in 2017, she received one of the highest honors in Nashville. She was officially inducted as a member of the Grand Ole Opry. For Crystal, it was a deeply emotional, full-circle moment. As a teenager filled with hopes and fears, she had stood on that very stage in her sister's place. Decades later, she stood there again, not as Loretta's substitute, but as Crystal Gayle, an icon in her own right, celebrated for her own unique contributions to the music she loved. As Loretta's health began to decline in her later years, the public narratives of rivalry and comparison faded into irrelevance, replaced by the quiet truth of their relationship. Crystal was there for her sister. There were no cameras, no stage lights, just 2 sisters sharing their final years together. Crystal would sit by Loretta's bedside, visiting often, singing softly, and offering the kind of profound comfort that only family can give. After a lifetime of public comparisons, what endured was their private devotion. In October of 2022, Loretta Lynn passed away at the age of 90. The world mourned the loss of a global icon, a trailblazer who had changed music forever. For Crystal, the loss was infinitely deeper and more personal. She had not just lost a fellow star, she had lost the woman who had encouraged her first songs, given her the first breaks of her career, and remained a constant, guiding presence through every stage of her life. In the months that followed, Crystal carried herself with a quiet, powerful strength. She did not dwell on the old stories of rivalry or criticism. Instead, she honored Loretta's legacy by consistently reminding fans of the profound love they shared. Only Loretta could be Loretta, she told interviewers, a simple but powerful affirmation of what everyone already knew, that her sister's place in history was singular and untouchable. But by then, the world had also come to recognize that Crystal Gayle had earned a legacy that was entirely her own. Even now, at 74, Crystal continues to tour, her concerts drawing generations of fans who remain captivated by her music. And when she steps onto those stages, she carries not only her own remarkable story, but Loretta's as well. Together, they expanded the boundaries of what country music could be, and proved that the bonds of family endure long after the final curtain falls. Crystal Gayle's journey was never simple. She began as Loretta Lynn's younger sister, forever watched to see if she could live up to the legendary name. She faced criticism, endured endless comparisons, and carried a weight of expectation that few artists could bear. But through it all, she carved out a career that was entirely, magnificently her own. With her countrypolitan hits, Grammy recognition, and an image that defined an era, she became a legend. Her bond with Loretta was complicated by fame and public perception, but in the end, it was unbreakable. When the spotlight finally faded, what remained was family, respect, and an enduring love. Crystal Gayle continues to sing, continues to tour, and continues to honor not just her own legacy, but the legacy of the sister who first made her believe it was all possible.